Hi all, it's Dr. Dan Ratner, your MFSN The Hub host. Are you ready for The Hub's deep dive fantasy football strategy first and 10? This is a strategy guide to fantasy football where we use our collective knowledge to teach you how to develop into the strongest fantasy football manager you can be. We talk about strategies within the game, such as how to build your roster effectively, how to evaluate a trade or construct a good one, or what you need to think about when setting your lineup. Today, I will discuss with the crew how you can keep yourself from blindness about your own roster so you don't shoot yourself in the foot during the playoffs. I'm here with my compatriots as always. We've got Casey Scheinvold, Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and Ross the Boss.
Hi everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk fantasy sports with you, cowboy.
All right, now before we even begin, I want to remind you all, the new people to the channel, click subscribe, hit like, ring the bell for notifications, and put your comments below. We want to hear from you on what you think of this. Our subject today on First and 10 is, how do you avoid overvaluing your own players? This is important, especially in the playoffs. You've come this far. You've lived with these players pretty much the whole season, and maybe some you acquired on the wire or traded for. How do you see your players accurately so that you don't make the mistake of overvaluing your players and playing the wrong guys?
Well, I think you just can't be stuck in your ways. I mean, someone that was a great starter for you in week 5 may not be a great starter for you in week 15, so you have to look at how they're actually performing, and you have to look at, is there a reason that their production has dipped? Are they playing fewer snaps? Are they is the entire offense scoring fewer points than it was earlier in the season? Have there been injuries on the offensive line that's kind of ruining the whole flow of the offense? So you have to figure out why it is they're performing worse, and then you have to just look at it as objectively as you can and try to plug in someone that is actually more likely to succid.
It's like with CeeDee Lamb. He's a bust now. Look, in keeper and dynasty leagues, maybe you hold on to him. In dynasty, of course. But go ahead, Ross. What were you going to say?
It was Casey.
That was Casey
Okay.
that said that?
It was
Casey,
me.
are you
I'll
a
go.
ventriloquist? You threw your voice.
I have many talents. Ventriloquism is certainly not one of them. But I take kind of the Godfather approach. It's business, not personal. You have to remove kind of that emotional connection you have to the guys you drafted or the guys you really like. Leave the gun, take the cannoli, that whole thing. You got to look at the numbers and trust in the statistics and not the name that's attached to the statistics necessarily, because there may be people who are trending in the right direction and trending in the wrong direction. And just because somebody, like Andrew said, won you the first few weeks of the season doesn't mean they're going to be just as successful later in the season. Another tip I use is having people like you that I can rely on. People like other fantasy friends who may not have the same emotional connection, may be able to give you objective information. Maybe not somebody who's in the same league as you because they have some ulterior motives to give you bad information. I know I've asked Andrew for advice in the past, and he said, I can't share that with you. You're my enemy right now. But find some people maybe who are willing to be objective and willing to be trustworthy and get some second opinions or second set of eyes on the statistics.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a lot of what the fantasy industry is really in the first place, is giving you opinions to test, and then you make the decision whether it passes the smell test for you. I mean, I think a lot of the time I can speak for myself. When I'm thinking about making some sort of a roster move, I sort of already know how I feel about it, but then I want to just see it validated somewhere outside of myself. Someone else saying something about that player that makes me more confident in my own assessments. But at the end of the day, it is really about your own assessments.
In the psychological world, we call that confirmatory bias.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Nah, it's not always that good.
It's generally not such a good thing. And bias is not usually a good thing. Ross, how do you deal with this problem? I have a feeling you're going to tell us you don't have this problem.
It's called motivation. Motivation is a word I use every day. I wake up in the morning, I'm motivated to do something. So if a player's motivated to do well in the game and win the game, there's a reason why they want to win the game. What's the reason, guys? To make the playoffs. So let's say a team like the Arizona Cardinals. They're on the bubble a little bit. They're trying to get into the playoffs. Can they do it? 3 games left. 3 weeks left in the season. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a hard thing. They're motivated. So I think Murray's motivated. I think Drake's motivated. Hopkins is motivated. All those guys are motivated. Those guys want to win. A team like the Chargers, Justin Herbert, Is he motivated? I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't start him right now. I feel his team's on the down. His coach is going to be fired. Their whole defense is in disarray. So for me, it's the teams that are in the bubble or in the wild card or in the playoffs. They have something to play for. So that's the guys I'm starting. Do you hear me?
Ross, that's brilliant. And I hadn't quite put it together that way, because what I was going to say is that the team context matters. It's not just about the stats. You do want to check out the stats, but we watch these teams and we all know this. Teams can look great for a while and then they get banged up, or some personnel problem happens, or the team chemistry starts to fall apart, and the team context can really matter. But I really like Ross's point, especially here, because it helps me understand, well, how do you pick between these two players? Now, if you pick the guy who's more motivated, they probably are going to do better. But Ross, you also made this point. I can't remember where it was. I think it was on the waiver wire. You made the point that there's players who are out of the playoffs that have motivation if they are young players who are looking to make an impact. That's another way that they could have a lot of motivation. But your point is taken nonetheless. Now, audience, I want to hear, not just me, we all want to hear from you about your ideas about how you avoid the problem of overvaluing your players. We've all run into this trap before. We just stick with the same players and we're like, I think they're going to be this good. But eventually the stats start to add up, or the motivation level changes. I mean, with CeeDee Lamb, it's all of it. The stats have fallen. There's no motivation there. He's not playing with Dak Prescott. He's got nothing to play for. He's a player I would stay away from. I'm not meaning to pick on him. I'm just trying to show that as an example of the way you think of it. Put it in the comments, though, if you have suggestions. What's that?
You know who I think is a good example of this? A guy that I've had on one of my rosters is Tyler Lockett. And he's had 2 games this season that were just unbelievable, like 3 touchdowns, 200-yard kind of games. And I think those sort of games really stick in people's mind, and they make people overvalue him as a player. Because if you look at it, he hasn't had more than like 67 yards in a game in like 8 weeks or something like that. I mean, and people think, oh, he's with Russell Wilson, it's an amazing offense. Like, you got to play that guy, right? And, the rankings we do at Fantasy Pros, I've been like 10 spots lower on him than everybody else for like a month now, because I have him on my own team. And I'm just like, I don't trust this guy. He's not like, he'll have one good game every 2 months. That's not going to work for me, So it's like, I was incredibly excited about him earlier in the season, but my perspective on it has really changed because he's just not getting enough consistent looks. DK Metcalf is clearly the number one guy in that offense now, and Tyler Lockett's playing second fiddle.
So fantastic points. Casey makes the point. You got to look outside of yourself. You also have to be careful who you trust, because if people sway you, Ross has said this before, trust yourself. So you got to balance the two. But I think, Andrew, your point is very well taken, that sometimes we get caught in a trap where we feel like we have to play someone because of something from the past. If it's in the distant past, you let it go. Things change a lot in this game.
And you don't have to play them just because other people think that they're really great either. I mean, it's the kind of reverse of what we're talking about here. But sometimes there are certain players that just get super hyped up by everybody. And there's a lot of groupthink that exists out there. So everybody's kind of overrating the player. And then if you have that player on your own team, it makes it even harder for you to take a real hard look at them and be like, are they really as good as I think they am? Because everyone else is saying they're great too.
Yeah, and I think something that's important, and we'll go back to Tyler Lockett, is a lot of people, fantasy football managers, are afraid to leave that guy who's capable of 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on their bench, because they sit there and they say, I don't want to miss the 35-point week, so I'm going to play him just in case. And that, if you're doing something just in case, that's generally bad management strategy. So you have to be comfortable making your choice and living with the results. And so we always, many managers, myself included at times, get afraid of I don't want to miss out on that wild card or that lottery ticket, so I'm going to keep playing him in case he strikes this week.
That's right. Don't play just in case. He's a terrible player. But I do want to say this. You always want to be evaluating. Don't stop evaluating, because things change a lot, especially in fantasy football. It's one of the things that has driven me crazy about it, and why I've gravitated to baseball more and even basketball. Things change a little less in those sports. So guys, great job talking about this. Audience, I want you to put in the comments anything we missed, ideas that you have. For new people, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We're going to have our fantasy basketball strategy coming up as well. We got you covered in all sports, and that's going to be on Full Court Press. This has been First and 10. Thank you for watching.
Lying with a blanket over my head, she asked if she could see who was under the blanket with me. I said, you don't want to find. It is Hideki Matsui and